Making a video. Yay. Anyway, yeah, so I guess I won't play anything, and I probably won't even show what I'm going to read. It's easier just to leave the camera in one spot. It is easier. So anyway, Modern Mystic made a video, Blame and Pride in a Materialistic World. I guess he meant deterministic world. But regardless, yeah, I think it probably did. So anyway, that was his point. In a world of determinism, there isn't much room for, in a world of matter interacting. That's sort of the implications of determinism, is that there's a physics involved, and every construct is a product of a chain of events, and the events are, fixed. You could backtrack everything. I can go back through all my ancestors and find the little frog. That was the family frog. It's there. It was there. It had a life. It was alive at one point a million years ago. My genetic code was on its way, and it was being carried in the genetic suitcase of some stupid little frog. And he had a destiny. He wasn't aware of it. No one informed him that you're going to be this. And he might like to know that. I mean, we might like to know, where our signature is going to end up in the future. The curiosity's sake, it'd be interesting. And obviously, that knowledge might change our behavior, and then we'd change the future. So that's the implications of this fixed reality, is that time travel would be very problematic. So anyway, but blame, the word blame and pride. So these are words, though, and you can play with these words a little bit and understand a little bit that, in a society we use the word blame, like we say something's happens and that guy did it, and if we say that guy sucks, that's not blame, that's just identifying. That's identifying something as sucking, being detrimental. There's not a violation of determinism. You don't violate determinism by saying, that guy sucks. Now, if you say, that guy shouldn't have sucked, well, that's not really wrong either, because you're just basically arguing that it would sure be better if he didn't suck. Alright, so yeah, it'd be really cool if Adolf Hitler didn't have that nasty little Jew bigotry. If he was a little grown-up little boy and, could have done his, whatever, his European unification, without silly notions of master races and inferior races and all that kind of crap. He'd still be wrong, per se, maybe, possibly, but at least he wouldn't be as wrong. Right? So these words are still valid words. I think it's just kind of silly to say that we can't identify causes. The fact that we can't do anything about them is just the way it is. I mean, we could identify a lot of flaws in the Wright brothers airplane, right? Because we have knowledge now. And that knowledge informs us and would enable us to fix their plane and make it fly better. Yeah, it's just the truth, okay? We could build a better plane now. And so we can call that piece of shit a piece of shit. And it's okay. It's not blame, in some sort of... I just don't... The word isn't really a wrong word. Blame is perfectly appropriate. Identifying where things went wrong, where it could have gone right and it went left instead, and you say, well, shit, it would have been a lot better if it went left. Obviously, it couldn't have gone left because it happened in the past and it's done and we can't change it. We can't change the chain of causes and effects. We can't. We can identify them as being shitty, and that's all we can do. We can just say, damn, it would have been better if his mother would have pet him one more time. Just would have said, good Jimmy, or whatever. Just one other time, and everything would have been okay. He wouldn't have been a psychotic lunatic. So we can identify where the leak started, where the rust, the corrosion began, because the paint wasn't perfectly put on. And we can say, gee, that guy, if he would have just spent another 2 seconds, I mean, if his wife wouldn't have nagged him as he was walking out the door, he might have paid attention to his job, and then the space shuttle wouldn't have flown up. Yeah, we can do that. So I just think it's stupid. As for pride, it's another tricky word, but I mean, it's a, we can feel grateful, right? I mean, pride is a kind of gratitude for being, gee, I'm not as big an asshole as that fucker. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have the sensation of not having cooties. Ooh, I don't have cooties. Cool. I mean, what am I supposed to feel bad because I don't have cooties? Of course not. So the fact that I personally, this psychology, and it's a word of psychology, would feel better not being the cause of the rust. Oh, at least it wasn't my, tile that blew up. I didn't fuck it up. Gee, yeah, I'm cool. I don't know if that's a crime against determinism. I'd say if you want to take it a step further, the way to look at it would be is that it obviously doesn't matter whether I feel good or he feels good. It doesn't matter who gets blamed. It doesn't really matter. It says there's going to be somebody sad and somebody happy and all that kind of thing. The winning thing doesn't really matter. You give the gold medal to anybody and it's going to have an implication, and there's going to be a parade, and there's going to be happy people and sad people, blah, 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 blah. So in that sense, you can understand it. And it's just like understanding slavery. In a way, the crime is punished. It's punished by the victims experiencing the punishment. And the victims being just as meritorious as the perpetrators means that you're just shooting yourself in the ass, or however you want to describe the feature you're shooting. But yes, you're just shooting yourself when you're exploiting something of similar character to yourself, if you're consuming something of similar value. So if you use up a bunch of coal to make gasoline, you know what I mean? It's still something of value. There's still a compromising of the environment. There's still an expense. If you use rubies to make diamonds, and they end up using more rubies than the diamond is worth in the end, that would be stupid. And so I guess the argument is kind of like, if you cause a bunch of suffering to other people, human consciousnesses, you're just subjecting consciousness to suffering, and you're not going to win in the long run doing that, because in the long run it adds up. You can't say they don't count, so that doesn't make any sense. So I'm just saying, if you look in that overview way, as a collective, you can see that you're paying for your crimes, so to speak. The crimes are being punished. It's just not the same consciousness being imposed having the punishment. But what's it matter which consciousness pays? So you can almost look at it as a group idea. If you're a group A and there's a group B, you could understand that, if some other member of group A, has to pay a price for some flaw or something stupid you do, you could better understand that, oh shit, I hurt group A, the members of group A, because you make them part of yourself. And so it's just expanding your understanding that all of the players count. And so all of the real price of something is paid. It's not like there is no free lunch. So if you're enjoying yourself in comfort and pleasure and ease and peace because of somebody else's jeopardy and stress and harm and suffering, you're not winning. You're losing. And if you're doing it overtly and you're defending it and perpetuating it, then you're a shitty loser. You're a stupid fuck. And that's just a fact. It's not blame. It's just a fact. You suck. Yeah. It's perfectly legitimate in the world of a deterministic universe to say something sucks. Perfectly sensible. So anyway, there was this asshole who made it's sort of related to the modern mystic, because it has to do with this whole value nihilism bullshit. It's just so irritating. So anyway, calls himself One Guy for Science, and has an icon that is pain with a red line through it, which is funny, considering his comment. Anyway, This is just getting ridiculous. So this issue of objective morality values is outrageously simple, at least when you think in a rational and logical fashion, without having your judgment clouded by false sense of superiority or bias. So that's, I guess, some sort of accusation. Yeah, that the reason why I am defending victims is because I have a superiority and complex and am biased. So the reason why I describe other sentient creatures and defend animals and such is because I'm somehow biased. Apparently, what, against humans? Where would the bias be? But anyway, yeah, just rhetoric. Obviously, it doesn't have any coherency to anything real. Gary is just arrogantly dismissing everything that doesn't fit his model of reality. Again, I don't arrogantly dismiss it. I dismiss it with extensive explanation of why what you're going to say is complete nonsense. So arrogance would be, I would say it like, you're a complete fucking moron. Period. And that might be arrogance. But if I'm going to go to the trouble to explain it to you, it's not exactly arrogance. So anyway, as he always does. Again, I always does it how? How do I just make some arrogant video that I don't defend? Oh, sure. Fuck you, you're an idiot. Anyway, in this video, he is constantly saying this nonsense that sentient matters. Yes, and when I say it, I'm not saying that sentience is matter. I'm not saying that sentience has a material structure. What I'm saying is that sentience is a phenomenon. It is identifiable. We can recognize it. Okay, we don't recognize it based on some material signature, so to speak, beyond the fact that we see something that behaves as if it's sentient. We give it a few little tests and we can deduce its sentience reliably. It's pretty certain I'm sentient and this bottle is not. It's really not worth having a debate about it. It's pretty certainly a truth. Okay, and having sentience, it is a real thing. It does exist. It is happening. Whether it's just an illusion inside my brain, doesn't matter. It's an illusion that's happening inside my brain. And my brain is creating it. So obviously, if it's fooling itself, it had to create itself to fool itself. You understand? There must be a self of some kind somewhere in there to be fooled. You know, you can't fool nothing. So it's fooling something, and the something is the collective of brain function that has been constructed through the process of natural selection. All right, and this nonsense that sentient matters. So again, let's just understand. I'm saying it matters because I'm saying it's real. It's a real phenomenon. The fact that something is having qualitative states of sentient welfare. They are experiencing sensations that have qualitative states. I'm saying that's an absolute fact of the universe. It's a phenomenon taking place that's just as real as magnetism or gravity. It's really happening in my consciousness. That the subjective state of comfort matters in this universe. That the subjective state of comfort. So yes, the individuals are having states. This is true. And that I'm saying those states are significant states. That's what the word matters means. So again, I'm saying they are recognizable as significant value states. They create, in fact, value. This is just preposterous silliness. So he's saying it's silly to recognize the fact that conscious sensations come in the category of awful or preferable, but that those words mean nothing. It's entirely an illusion. When you're happy, it doesn't make any difference because you might as well be sad because there's no distinction between those two states in terms of value. They are equally valuable. There is no such thing as an objective value. So when I use the word objective, I'm talking about a perspective that is as complete as necessary to whatever you're analyzing, and one that doesn't contain bias. So there's no prejudice in your perspective, so there's no rose-colored glasses, and you have enough information to describe the element of the feature in terms of all of its functionality, the full context of its reality, its function is understood. So not every bit of minutia needs to be understood. You don't need to know the atomic weight of the paint on a car to talk about automobile efficiency. And likewise, in talking about the function of sentient beings, you don't need to know where every atom is in the universe. You don't need to know what's happening on the dark side of the moon to talk about the significance of conscious states. And so my point would be is an objective value would be an understanding of value perceived by an intelligence. So recognized, and that there be no possible way for an intelligence not to recognize it. So an intelligent observer, obviously an observer that has enough knowledge to make claims about, compare the efficiency of automobiles. The efficiency of automobiles you would concede is a real thing, correct? You would describe one car as being more fuel efficient than another car, and it would be by explicit standards, by material facts of the function of the car. I'm saying likewise we can judge the efficiency of the conscious engines, and in terms of the sensations they create, and that the standards for somebody being able to make those judgments would be the standard of somebody having some awareness of consciousness, obviously, maybe tasting some of it, having tasted consciousness, and have some ability to say, oh yes, I get it, this sensation sucks and this sensation does not suck. Anyway, your subjective state of comfort and equally subjective dislikes of negative emotions mean nothing to the universe. So right there is just such a hilariously obnoxious and rude thing to say. Where have I ever, in any video, ever implied that the universe is a mind, or that the universe has a brain, or a sensation capacity, or a feeling capacity, or any of that? Nowhere. The only thing that can make judgments about any of these things, the only thing that can judge the efficiency of a car, is a thinking machine of some kind. And what I'm saying is our thinking machine applied to analyzing sentience cannot rationally, cannot in any possible way, in any logical way, not recognize the significance of this sentient experience. It is outrageously obvious, and it's not even as nuanced as the efficiency of an automobile. It's even more obvious. So again, so he's claiming that it's a subjective state of comfort. No, it's a factual state. Things are either comfortable or uncomfortable. It is silly to say it is something they subjectively make up. They are either in it or they're not in it, and they do it rather consistently and universally. So it would be nonsense to say it's some subjective state. It's a state the individual produces as they experience. Right now I don't have brain cancer, so I don't have some screaming headache. I'm not having a horrible, awful, terrible sensations, and so I would be qualified. I'd be put in a category of sentient experience, and the category wouldn't be in a horrible state, in a terribly negative state. So it's just idiotic for me not to be able to recognize those state changes. That would be ignorant, preposterously ignorant. Okay. This is just preposterously silliness. Negative emotions mean anything to the universe. So again, nothing to this universe. Again, I've never said it means anything to the universe. I've never said there's a God or there's any kind of Justice League or any kind of anything that accounts for either the efficiency of cars in the universe or the meaning of life or does any of those things. Only an intelligence can discern these facts and calculate them. Only an intelligence can discern this truth that 1 + 1 = 2. He keeps saying that the matter, without adding the very important proposition 2, he keeps saying that they matter without adding the very important proposition 2. Well, why two preposition? Why would 2 be important? Again, the mattering is like recognizing efficiency. It doesn't need to be efficient to me. It just either is or it isn't. A car is either fuel efficient or it is not fuel efficient by a standard. It doesn't have to anything. It's a description of what we are and how we function. Okay, the mattering is in the very nature of the fact that we consume the fuel, all right, of emotional character, of conscious state. As soon as you're capable of being in a conscious state, you are a consumer of value, or a producer of value by some people's math. They don't just matter, they matter to someone. Well, again, that's your idiotic argument, okay? A rape is bad whether there's a witness or not. The witness is irrelevant. It just is. It's a fact that something feels. The feeling is the thing that has the value. I've never said the sentient has the value. I'm saying the feeling creates value. The fact that only a feeling thing can create a feeling shouldn't have to be explained, right? I mean, quite obviously, the thing that creates, if the golden goose was the only way you got gold, you would value the golden goose, right? I mean, the goose that lays the golden egg. If that was the only place you can get gold from, you'd have to value the goose, because the goose creates the golden eggs. We create feelings. Feelings have value. We don't have any value, but we create the thing that has value. To a subjective mind, to a conscious entity, to a person, but they just don't matter objectively. Well, again, I'm saying feelings do matter. Yes, people do not matter, animals do not matter, things do not matter. Sensations are value creators. Sensations have a value component built right into them. At best, one can say that there are objective reasons why certain experiences are being subjectively interpreted as positive or negative. Subjective reasons. I mean, it's just, it's subjectively interpreted. Okay? No, we know that they're universally interpreted, first off. And that it is not an interpretation, it is a declaration. Okay? They're not interpreted as positive and negative. They are declared positive and negative by their very essence. Just as there is energy that's available in fuel. Fuel has energy that's available. That's what makes it valuable. I mean, it's a constituent of the conscious experience. Okay, you can't possibly have a feeling that doesn't have a character to it that slides somewhere on that scale. And I'm saying the whole scale is just a skewed negative. You're just really replacing negatives. So, the absence of negative is going to be a positive. But one simply can't logically state that certain brain states which are subjectively interpreted, well, I see again, I'm going to say that's they're not interpreted, that they're created, as positive somehow matter objectively. No, I'm saying they matter. They are significant. They would matter to any intelligent observer. No intelligent observer could observe the negative state being experienced and not recognize it as value rich, as being a fuel that had lots of energy available. So by the standard of value, there's value richness in the sentient creature having conscious experience. Nothing intelligent could not see that. Nothing informed on what consciousness is, having tasted it, would think are not to be capable of recognizing the difference, the distinct difference between repulsive sensation and non-repulsive sensation. The same is true about morality. Well, again, how many explicit times have I said I have no use for the word morality? None whatsoever. So again, this guy is just a slanderer, a liar. That's a better way to put it. Morality can have an objective definition as a system of principles regarding certain actions or events that are defined as good or bad for an individual. Does that make any sense? Morality can have an objective definition? How can you possibly say that? It's idiotic. I mean, really, it's idiotic. You know, he just posted all this stuff. I mean, you can't make any sense out of this, can you? I'll read this again. This is after what he just said, and he comes up with this crap. The same is true about morality. Morality can have an objective definition as a system of principles. An objective definition is a system of principles. I mean, what does that actually mean? Oh, we made up some words to define the words. Oh, regarding certain actions or events, but you know, but it's just such an abuse of the word objective, right? He nags me about my use of it, and then he uses it in this sloppy way, an objective definition. What do you mean by objective? You mean informed definition, an intelligent definition, an unbiased definition? Events that are defined as good or bad for an individual. But this does not mean that one should behave in a moral fashion. So even that's even funnier, right? So he's saying you can have an objectively defined morality based on some sort of principles, and yet it wouldn't be prescriptive. I don't even understand why you would even use the word morality if it is not prescriptive. That's just idiotic. Or that good and bad exist as separate concepts. Even that's hilarious, right? That's why we have the words. And the words couldn't get more extreme, right? The words are as extreme as hot and cold, wet and dry. I mean, they're words describing two fundamentally different characteristics based on some key component being absent entirely or being entirely flooding the individual. I would argue that the absence of bad is the good, so that bad is the wet word, let's say, and good is the dry word, or something like that. But anyway, exist as separate concepts that do not relate to conscious entities. I don't know, who can make sense? But this does not mean that one should behave in a moral fashion, or that good and bad exist as separate concepts that do not relate to conscious entities. So, obviously, I'm saying that, yes, the only way you could make good and bad mean anything is to have conscious entities. I'm saying the very fact that we invented the word good and bad, we invented the word because of the fact that we can have conscious states of good and bad. Things are bad because they make us sad or make us have a bad feeling or in some way hurt us. And things are good because they relieve us of burden and take away our pain and take away harm to the things we care about and all that kind of crap. So it's just idiotic to say this statement, because obviously the words good and bad would not exist in our vocabulary if we did not have bad and good feelings. So, I mean, it's just so obvious. As I've just mentioned, certain actions or events can be defined as good or bad for an individual, but they do not exist as concepts that are not related to individuals. Well, I think it's quite obviously they do affect more than an individual. Obviously, one individual can have a good feeling doing harm to another individual, and we can easily calculate the exchange rates and come up with a net product for that activity. I might feel good building a cheap nuclear power plant, you know, and obviously I could create a colossal amount of bad doing it. So it would be just silly to say that we can't understand that it would be, the ought statement would be, no, you ought not to do that. So it's just stupid. But obviously individuals experience consciousness. There is no collective consciousness, per se, as any kind of reasonable, explicit statement. There's no explicit communal consciousness. There are individual brains, they create consciousness. There's individual gooses, they produce the golden eggs. It doesn't really matter what goose creates what eggs. It doesn't all this kind of crap. We can go on and on. It just matters what eggs are created. And so we could use the golden goose as the goose that lays the golden eggs as an example, and just say, let's say we had something opposite of gold, the anti-gold. Some kind of egg that ate the golden eggs. Okay, so gooses that laid anti-eggs, that sucked up the golden eggs and threw them in black holes or something. Then you could obviously do some math and say that this group of gooses is more likely to produce anti-gold eggs, and in the end we're going to lose if those gooses reproduce, or some argument like that. So anyway, so once again, Gary is just trying to show how poorly he manages to apply simple logic to extremely simple concepts. Well, I'm saying that you're the one saying that it's too simple a concept to recognize that consciousness is a fact of our experience, of our reality, and that its qualitative states are, as they seem, quite simply, layered, latent, full of value components, value quanta. You're the one denying us the simplest, the most obvious of all facts in the universe to anything that has tasted sentience. Anything that has tasted sentience, I think, is insane if it can't tell the flavor difference. That even the first-year philosophy student should be able to figure out. Well, I'm not very impressed with philosophy education in the first place, so that's almost hilarious to me that you would use that as an argument. What do you do in your first year of philosophy studenting? Read the Germans? Yeah, Nietzsche? Oh, yeah, forget about it. But I guess that shouldn't surprise me. Well, whatever. I'm not impressed by you either, fellow. Whoever you are. I haven't seen any videos by you. Do you make anything like a video that I could dissect? Let's go see. I bet you he doesn't. No activity at all. Gee, you're such a brave little toaster. See, and no videos, yeah. No surprise there, right? Yeah. So you talk from no context. What's your degree in? Why don't you put your qualifications on display, so we can judge whether you got past your first month of philosophy college. Yeah, but anyway, it really is. This is kind of hilarious, right? That these people wish to deny the phenomenon of consciousness as a phenomenon, and then deny that intelligence has no choice but to recognize the existence of the character difference between a positive and a negative sensation. So they're saying to me that there could possibly be some super duper magnificent computer in the future that analyzes the universe, and when it does so, it would not see consciousness. It would not see the value difference between the two states of being. It would think those two states of being were equal. That would be what an intelligence would deduce. And one assumes that the supercomputer would taste consciousness before it could make the judgment, correct? So anyway, but that's really what we're talking about. Obviously, the universe is a thing, and to explain a thing has many contextual details to it. So having a rock is territory. You could say that is territory. But describing the rock is a lot more complicated, because you've got to account for every connection, every relationship that may be significant to the rock, what it is, its substance. And I'm saying that for the purpose of expediting things, You don't need to sit there and say how many impurities are in the plastic of this bottle. You can just say plastic bottle. You don't have to explain that, okay, it might have some gold in it, it actually might have some lead in it. You don't have to bother with that. And what I'm saying is that when we look at a human being, we don't have to get too complicated about this whole consciousness thing. Beyond the fact that we experience it, we know these sensations exist that have this character that is overtly, it can't be interpreted any other way by the consciousness experiencing it, as repulsive or attractive, or as obnoxious or comforting. We have a whole list of words we've come up with to describe all the nuances of the unpleasantness of feelings and the pleasantness of feelings. And it's just silly to say that that stuff is not real, that those distinctions are not real. They're quite obviously real, and we've quite obviously sensibly recognized their reality. So it's just stupid to talk about whether they're material or not. They don't have to be material. They're a conscious projection. Our conscious projections are part of reality now. They're mechanically created by our brain. Our brain doesn't get them from nowhere. I have an image of a cherry in my head, let's say right now. I think cherry on a piece of paper. An image. That image exists in my structure. The constituents of it, the whole thing is projected, created by my consciousness. It has a material structure. It's just that we can't access the material structure and have a conversation based on splitting our brain like an MRI into little slices and showing it to you and saying, here's the material suffering. But the material suffering will exist. It's a thing being projected, being created by my brain. It is now, when I feel it, part of the material universe. And it's you who are not accounting for that fact. But the illusion is not from nothing. It's from something. There is a projector. There is a screen. It just happens to be inside of neurology. Fuck you. And such.